Okay. All right. Great. We're on here. This is for both candidates. I'm going to address it first to Councilman DeMaio. You talk about city reform, and Congressman, you talk about neighborhoods. I'd like two specific ideas or plans you have, starting with you, Councilman, on how you would reform the city, and then following up, Congressman Filner, if you could respond with your top two plans. You talk about neighborhoods, how you would improve neighborhoods in San Diego, and which neighborhoods. Can we go ahead and start with you?
Absolutely. You want to talk about a specific plan? I'm running on a 250-page specific plan that not only balances the budget, but restores neighborhood services like after-school programs, police and fire coverage, and rebuilds our community infrastructure, starting with our streets and our sidewalks first, making sure that we adequately maintain our storm drains so that we can protect our beaches and our bays from runoff. I'm the only candidate running on a specific plan. Mr. Filner runs on rhetoric. I'm running on reality and great ideas from both sides of the political spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, and in the middle, the independents. This is a plan that we've actually started implementing by votes of the City Council. For example, my infrastructure streamlining plan, which passed on an 8-0 vote in April, as well as my small business action plan to cut red tape on business improvement districts, which also passed by an 8-0 vote last August. We have racked up a list of accomplishments working with colleagues on the City Council to implement budgetary savings and restore services. We also have used initiatives where necessary. And while Mr. Filner supported a massive tax increase in the middle of one of the worst economies in generations, which would have hurt our working families, it would have killed jobs, it would have hit our small businesses, I proudly joined with Democrats, Republicans, and independents, neighborhood advocates, to oppose that tax increase. Mr. Filner talks about defending the neighborhoods, but not a cent of that tax hike was guaranteed to go to our neighborhood infrastructure or neighborhood programs. It was appropriately a pension tax designed by the government employee union bosses. It was backed by the downtown insiders of the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Corporation and all the lobbyists who contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars, Mr. Filner, to support your idea to raise taxes on working families in the middle of a recession and give no guarantee that a cent of that money would go to our core neighborhood services like after-school programs, road repairs, police and fire. So if you want a test of who stands up for the working class and who stands up for the neighborhoods, we've had that test.
All right.
Bob Filner stood with the downtown insiders to raise your taxes and not give a cent to the neighborhoods. I stood with you, the people, on a bipartisan basis to defeat that sales tax and put in place reform.
Bob, do you want to respond? Or you had the same question?
Wait, we got a real test, Carl, and that's the mayor's race.
But what are you going to do about neighborhoods?
I'll get to that. That we have to, he said, we got a test. Look at who's funding all these negative ads on me. Look who's funding his campaign. It's all these people he, in public, says, the downtown insiders I oppose. They're all with you, Carl. And the biggest one of all is Doug Manchester, and you won't even say his name. You're so proud of his support. So we got a test. It's called this mayor's race. And the last poll showed I got, a majority of the votes so far. So we're going to pass that test. But the two things that we got to do right away, in answer to your question for the neighborhoods, is one, open up this government so the processes are clear, transparent, and people can get involved. They're about next week to vote on a financing plan for the convention center, which they left out the public, and they're imposing a tax, which should be voted on by the public. And guess who controls the tax? It's the special interest, the hotel guys. Come on, Carl, you're voting next week on a process which left out the public, does not have a public vote, and gives $30 million a year at least to the private interest. That's the test. And you're going to vote yes, like you always have on those. You vote no on everything else, it's for the people, but yes for the special interest. I want to set up, to replace CCDC, a neighborhood investment corporation, which looks at all the neighborhoods that have been neglected, as we have put $200 million a year of tax increment money downtown.
Now, this has come up before, but how would you fund that?
You might let me finish the question and then do your fact check, She hasn't given me the thing yet. The Neighborhood Investment Corp, we downtown CCDC worked. I was the councilman for downtown. I was responsible for the political leadership that led to the gas lamp development plan. So we know that focused government subsidy, private initiative, good planning can lead to good things. But that time is over. We don't need to subsidize downtown. People make money downtown. Why aren't we going to the neighborhoods? And we can, since my time is over, I'll take your question now, Scott.
Well, okay, how would you fund that?
You know, we have, first of all, there's $200 million a year that is supposedly leaving CCDC. Now, they're going to try to keep every single cent they got, those downtown special interests. They're going to try to keep it all. They can't keep it all, and we're going to move as much as we can over to the Neighborhood Investment Corporation. We're going to change the priorities where he gives the hoteliers $30 million. No, we're going to put in a general fund. And we're going to make sure that if Proposition B passes its legal test, which I don't think it will, but if it does, and I am required as mayor to implement it, I am the only one who can implement it and get those savings because I can negotiate with the employee groups to get the $1 billion in savings that Proposition B promises. Do you think Mr. DeMaio is going to be able to negotiate a 5-year agreement? No way in the world.
Okay.
Scott, can I respond?
Let's take another question. We'll do a response after that.
My question sort of goes off in a little bit of a different direction, although it deals very specifically with money, and that's this. San Diego's home to the largest concentration of defense assets in the world. 1 in 4 jobs is said to hinge on defense spending, and we're looking at sequestration where they're going to cut a very significant amount of defense. It could have a devastating economic effect on San Diego, which so far has skated through defense cuts pretty nicely. So we're going to have a plan in place to mitigate that economic damage, or we'll see our relatively low unemployment rate as opposed to the rest of California skyrocket. And that's something that we can't afford for our neighborhoods or for downtown. So Carl and Congressman, if you could just address that question, what do you think you can do to mitigate that damage?
I'm going to start with Congressman, or did you say?
Either one.
Let me first comment, if I may, on the question. You said we skated through the last BRAC processes with AIDS. We didn't skate through. We had congresspeople who made sure that San Diego was protected in that process. I was proud to have been there to do that. And, you know, in your question, you also left, we're also the home of the biggest population of veterans, those who have served our nation and our heroes. I was chairman of the Veterans Committee in the Congress in 4 years. We did more in those 4 years for our nation's veterans and those here in San Diego than anybody has done in decades, whether it's mental health monies, whether it's getting homeless off the streets, whether it's making sure that the young people back from Afghanistan, Iraq get a free college education, ability to buy a house. So my record is clear on this. My record is clear. And by the way, sequestration, that great word, was brought about by the failure of the Congress, and I would say a failure of the party that Mr. DeMaio represents, to negotiate a decent budget. All the president asked was for every $10 of cuts, there'd be $1 of closing tax loopholes so we can have more revenue into the federal government. The Republicans said no, so we got sequestration. The 5 congressmen now are fighting it. I don't think it's going to happen, by the way. I think it's a phony issue because Congress is dumb, but it's not stupid. That is, they're not going to let sequestration go. They may be the last day of the year on December 30th, but lastly, you said if it goes through, and again, what do we do to mitigate it? You know, in the 90s, when I was on the city council, when we didn't have any of these problems that came when Carl came to San Diego a few years ago, I led the council to form. We had a recession then because of the decline of the defense industry. I led the way to create the first economic development plan for San Diego, concentrated on a new sector which was not around at the time, high tech, which we speeded up permit process, we got capital in them, we formed incubators, and other aspects of the plan which helped us get out of this recession. So I have experience, the only real concrete experience, not a 250-page plan that nobody has ever read, that doesn't once mention the word environment, doesn't once mention the word education, does not once mention anything that he says he's for. But
that's it. I got to cut you
I got a record of doing that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. DeMaio?
You know, where to even begin? There's been so much in the past 5 minutes to respond to. But let me first start out with the most important issue, and that is getting San Diegans back to work. That's why I laid out the 110-page Pathway to Prosperity, which focuses on 3 core areas. First and foremost, regulatory reform of cutting red tape on our businesses so that we can make it easier to invest and expand in our job base. Second, preparing our workers for a 21st century economy through education reform and workforce development. And third, by focusing on initiatives to promote specific sectors of our economy, from tourism with the convention center expansion to our defense base, which is such a critical part of our economy. We will do that first and foremost by working with our business leaders and our local elected officials on a Defense Realignment and Closure Commission task force to go to Washington and to really lobby both the Pentagon and Congress to make sure that our jobs stay local. Second, we are going to be working on our Veterans Opportunity for Work initiative so that when service members come back to San Diego, that we have things like hiring preferences at the City of San Diego and local government enterprises, an initiative that I championed in 2010 and passed overwhelmingly, to update our hiring preferences to give an edge to veterans so that we can keep service members here in San Diego to call San Diego their home. We're also going to be moving forward on a very important project, the Navy Broadway Complex, so that we have the headquarters of the Navy, the Pacific Fleet, here in San Diego. Now, my opponent, Mr. Filner, has consistently voted against defense issues. First, he voted against defense funding in this year's budgets. He voted against continuing support for military recruitment on college campuses. How extreme can you be to tell our military that they shouldn't be on a college campus, Mr. Filner? And he opposes the naval headquarters here in San Diego that would keep our Navy jobs. We're a Navy town at our core in terms of the most important part of our military, the Navy town. But Mr. Filner opposes the very project that will make sure that the Navy can stay in San Diego and operate and expand. Now, I want to point out, if you want to know who's best on defense issues, ask the businesses that rely on our military. I'm proud of the fact that the 10 key biggest defense companies, their CEOs, to support my candidacy, and the San Diego Shipbuilders Association, which again is the primary association for defense issues on our waterfront.
Let me ask you really quickly about that issue about college recruiters. That was because the colleges were taking a stand about the military's prohibition against being an out gay person. Is that not a principle we're standing for?
Well, look, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Don't Ask, Don't Tell should have been repealed, and that's why I was proud to work with Councilmember Todd Gloria in leading our city council to condemn Don't Ask, Don't Tell and ask the military and the president, along with the Congress, to change that failed policy. And I'll tell you right now, in the past year, the elimination of Don't Ask, Don't Tell has been an overwhelming success, and it's a source of pride that San Diego went on record. Mr. Filner voted against military recruitment at our college campuses. You cannot take that sort of extremism and undermine our military. There's a right and a wrong way to cause social change to happen.
Mr. Filner, you have a minute to respond to anything.
Well, you know, it shows why, by the way, we need some of the Washington experience here in San Diego, because, you know, that's where some money is, and that's what, you know, some of our relations, especially around the border, deal with. He's going to send a BRAC commission to Washington. There is no BRAC. There is no BRAC. What's this commission you're talking about? I don't know, but I mean, visit, you know, leave San Diego once in a while. You know, for a world-class mayor, but a mayor of a world-class city has got to understand the world, not just potholes. But look at what the center point of his economic development plan was: the Broadway complex. Guess who's developing that? Doug Manchester. Real estate for Manchester. That's the guy who's developing it. That's why he's for it. He wants the Navy administrative headquarters could be anywhere. Doesn't have to be at the most beautiful place in San Diego, blocking access to the bay, blocking our views, blocking tourism. The centerpiece blocks out the port. You could put the Navy anywhere if you understood the Navy wants.
Let me ask you about that. The Navy's making that decision. What would you do to stop that?
I think that question's for you, Mr. Filner,
what are
since
you
you oppose
what are you
the
laughing
project.
I've stopped a lot of projects that were evil for San Diego.
And
by
good
the way.
for jobs.
Like, you know,
good for jobs.
Oh
in
yeah,
San
you want to
Diego,
be for
Congressman.
he's for NAFTA, he's for
No,
Twin
just
Ports.
tell me,
he's
what
for
would you
everything.
do to stop it?
The mayor has incredible ability to influence these kinds of decisions. This decision would never have been made. The city had to give permits. The city had to give things. The thing right now, and there's legislation that myself and Susan Davis have sponsored to renew
Hold on,
a.
I'll give you time, just a sec. Just listen to tunes in your head. Okay.
There is legislation that myself and Susan Davis are supporting. That I think it's Susan's legislation that would have that Navy project redo their EIR. It was done a long time ago. It's unclear whether the funding will be in place. And what Mr. Manchester always does is he threatens that he's going to sue everybody if he doesn't get his way. And so he's threatening, and I'm going to take him on. Hey, it's about time, Mr. Manchester, you did things for the city and not just for the few special interests and try to buy a mayor's office.
Okay, thank you.